is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable. He said, Hambone, today I got a game so weird, you're probably not going to be able to come up with a joke for it. And he was right. Stu Horvath.
How you doing, Hambone?
Dude, I legitimately have nothing. I was, you told me what the game was, told me what the game was about, and I was like, yeah, no, I got nothing. Finally stumped. I'm blowing smoke. How you doing today, man?
I'm excited to talk about The Price is Freedom, one of my favoriteest role-playing games ever.
Ever? Oh, wow. Well, this is a first that I'm hearing about it, so tell me more.
The reason why is obscure, and I'm going to save it to the end. But I do love this game because it's so freaking weird. It is a West End Games product. Came out in 1986. 1986 is a funny year in role-playing games. There's a lot of games that came out in 1986 that are, how do I say this carefully? They're
And this is how we get canceled.
lot of games that skewed very conservatively, very anti-communism, sort of pro-militia, like really a lot of military focused games. And I think this all sort of, the 80s were a time when the action hero became, ascendant in the movie theaters, right? And most of these guys like Rambo or Commando, they're one guy with a gun who can like bring justice to the battlefield, wherever the battlefield may be, right?
I mean, 86 is just 2 years removed from Red Dawn hitting theaters.
It's funny that you should mention that. I think that what happened is that Red Dawn came out and it kind of like really got into the minds of a certain sort of role-playing game designer. There were already some, small arms, small unit, military focused role-playing games out there, and this sort of the idea of Red Dawn really like cross-pollinated with that. And you just see an explosion of these games. There's a ton of them. Almost the vast majority of them came out through Fantasy Games Unlimited. Like the Freedom Fighters, Year of the Phoenix, Merc had been around for a while. Merc is a whole other thing that we should talk about someday. That is a gross game. Maybe next week. And even like Twilight 2000, which comes out from Game Designers Workshop, is this idea of a platoon or a group of soldiers doing soldier stuff. That's the idea of the game. Twilight 2000 is based on the idea that there's a small local nuclear conflict in Europe, and your soldiers fighting on the ground in the wake of that. Politically, the political climate of the time, the tensions of the Cold War, all these things make sense in the zeitgeist. But however many years later, they all seem sort of just weird. Like, I don't understand why people wanted to play these games. And the weirdest of the bunch, because they're all really heavy games. They're all very interested in heavy simulation of different types of guns, which even in the best of days, I don't want to do. Then you have The Price of Freedom, which is perhaps the mightiest and finest example of all of these, because it's so freaking weird and over the top. The cover of this thing has there's an American flag from which 3 freedom fighters are bursting. They are all obviously from the New York tri-state area. The one fella in the middle has his fist raised, and he's wearing a red, white, and blue sweatband on his head, and it has a white t-shirt that says "Better Dead Than Red" printed across it. Over this, they're bursting through the flag, and over this presides a portrait of Lenin.
John Lennon?
No.
I know. It's a silly guy.
B.I. Lenin with his mustache. He doesn't have the party hat on, but it's obviously Lenin. And the game, the basis of the game is, what if Russia, the Soviet Union, invaded the eastern seaboard of the United States, focusing primarily on New York and the tri-state area. This is a deeply stupid game. And honestly, mechanically, whatever. It's D20, it's skill based, it's fine for what it is. It is actually a little bit lighter, a little bit more usable than something like I think that Twilight 2000 is like borderline unplayable. It's just too complicated, let alone something like Phoenix Command or something where it's just like gun porn, the game. The thing about Price of Freedom is like it's obviously like a Red Scare infused game. It's obviously like catering to more conservative ideas at the time. It was written by Greg Costikyan, who, you know, he wrote Paranoia and Toon and Violence later on in 1999. Not someone I would think to produce a jingoistic, right-leaning game about the Red Scare's worst nightmare, right?
Yeah.
Like he made the Star Wars role-playing game, Ghostbusters.
Yeah, but I mean, like, it kind of feels like it all ties in, like thematically over the time, like rebel forces against the evil empire. I mean, you just reskin it. It's fucking Star Wars, you know?
Yeah, I guess in that respect, yeah.
And like it's kind of an over the plate hit for the time period because like like I said, you're like a year after Rambo, you're right around the time Red Dawn, you're like 2 years before Rambo 3 comes out, so like clearly there were certain things on our mind, like people still like thought Nazis were bad back then because we're still like close enough to World War II that we recognize Nazis are a problem. Like,
Yeah.
we knew who the bad guys were. We knew who to punch and who to shoot at in these games. So like, I mean, as something that is of very much of the time, it sounds like, I'd imagine it would be printing money because it is like right over the plate for everything that is like happening in the multiplex locally.
Yeah, it didn't though.
Oh,
and I don't
okay.
think any of these games really caught on over much. The FGU games, which are by far the more conservative of this sort of type of game, are basically one box and done. Merc has two half-hearted expansions. There are a couple Price of Freedom adventures or expansions. I only have the box set, but it did not do well. Costikyan described himself as left libertarian when he was writing this, and he was writing this as an experiment trying to get into a conservative mindset, create a kind of what he saw as a conservative game. And I think that he kind of sees it as a failed experiment. He's expressed, I've read interviews where he's expressed sort of embarrassment at the game for like a variety of reasons.
Oh, I'm sure it doesn't age well.
Oh, it doesn't age well at all. I find it just extremely funny. Like the cover, I feel like the Price of Freedom's cover is just so, probably in 1986, this was like an anxiety trigger for a lot of people. And now I just look at it and it makes me laugh so hard. It is one of the funniest, best role-playing game covers I can think of. So we're going to get into why I love this game so much. And it really has nothing to do with the substance of the game. First, I just want to talk about there's an introduction scenario, and there's 6 pre-generated characters who are, the freedom fighters that you play in this. And I think what this is something that I find interesting and thought-provoking about the game is that they are not all Red Scare culture war types. It is sort of a cross-section of interesting people that in this situation you could see, because America is a melting pot and there are all sorts of ideas floating around in your neighborhood, let alone on the town or state level. So all of these people are really interesting. Billy Barstow, for instance, his personal heroes are Jimi Hendrix, Bob Dylan, and Bruce. No last name necessary.
I mean, at that time, no way. He could have just even said the boss and everyone would have known.
Yeah.
My God.
Then Maria Cagliari, her personal heroes are Leon Trotsky, Che Guevara, and Eden Pastora. So her politics are Trotskyite Marxism, which makes sense because if Stalinists are invading, Trotskyites and Stalinists don't get along. So of course that she'd be on the. It sort of reimagines the tri-state area as like, what if the partisan fighting of South America happened here. Yeah, that like Jake Westry, his personal heroes are J. Edgar Hoover, G. Gordon Liddy, and Bernie Getz. I refuse to Costikyan insists in many interviews that I've read. I've only read a couple interviews. The interviews that I've read, it seems like Costikyan portrays this as like a genuine, sincere experiment And I just don't believe the creator of Paranoia, or not the creator, but one of the people who really made Paranoia the game that it is, who would go on to write the scathing satire of violence. I just can't read these character bios and think that he wasn't taking the piss on some level.
Oh, he's got to be.
Yeah, no, Jordan Miller's a Goldwater Republican. Johnson Merriweather loves Martin Luther King, George Washington Carver, Ludwig von Mises. Moishi Cohen, he's like the New York City Jewish guy.
Oh no.
No, and it's just like
No, but like, what did they possibly like go for in 1986 for like the New York City Jewish guy?
parents and wife are dead, 2 children, one in Tel Aviv, the other in Los Angeles. Neither ever calls.
Okay, so they didn't go for like who his personal heroes are. It was just like he's just got like a sad backstory.
No, personal heroes: Moshe Dayan, Lech Walesa, John Sobieski. He's a conservative Jew, Democrat. He's like New York City Jewish guy. Like
It could have went a lot worse. If they could have went, they could have. Okay, that's not bad. All right, that's yeah.
I can't find the one whose hero is money. I must be missing a page.
Like someone's hero's money.
Well, yeah, dude, it's the 80s, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah, greed is
The
good,
Wall
right?
Street bro.
Gordon Gekko.
Yeah. There was one. I just don't know where he is. Anyway, so the thing that really makes me love this game, because there's not really a ton to love, is the scenario, the impacted scenario. There's a hex map, Hambone. It's the best hex map because it's like right down the road from us.
No kidding.
I shit you not. The main action of the scenario takes place on the Communipaw Bridge, 1-9.
Really?
Yeah. It actually labels the Hackensack River and the border between Kearney and Jersey City. Like Kearney appears in this game.
Okay.
And, like right across the bridge is a building labeled Factory Outlet and what is now like the Lowe's hardware where Chuck E. Cheese is and the Asian food market.
Right.
Like that little mall there. Yeah. So like that's where this adventure takes place on the 1-9 bridge between Lincoln Park and Jersey City and South Kearney, the truck stop.
All right. And I will tell you though, for those listening at home, one does not just go down 1-9. Like clearly written by someone who is not from New Jersey, because like, that's like the last place you want to go because you're going to end up in South Kearney, which is like
desolate,
weird.
especially in the 80s.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, it was what I got my driver's license in 96 and I was hanging out with a girl from the area and I made a wrong turn and then I ended up in South Kearney and I thought I was in Twin Peaks and it was kind of like scary and weird. And, you don't forget these kind of things. Like there was like a weird trucker diner that I don't know how I got to, and I don't know that I've ever seen again.
There were 2 trucker diners down there. It's all like trucking companies. And like, I think that there was like a short-term motel down there at one point or like a truck stop kind of place.
Right.
It's sketch, and the river's right there. There's power plants and heavy industrial stuff. It's spoopy.
Okay. They rep New Jersey and they didn't go as like 80s racist as I imagine they would have, especially for the year and the topic that they were going for. So not bad. Not bad.
I mean, I would be surprised if Greg Costikyan trafficked in those sorts of stereotypes. But I will say that he was a New York City resident. And of course he has the war starting in New Jersey. It's like Lee Ving. Let's have a war. It'll start in New Jersey. Like, come on. Get no respect.
We get a lot of shit.
Stereotypical New York writer dumping on New Jersey.
Yeah, I mean,
1986
feels right to me.
No,
anyway.
The whole thing is super weird. It's a strange little time capsule of like cultural and political, social stuff that seems so dated in a lot of ways, but also sort of not in. I don't think that like you could take this game and like actually like be like, oh my God, nothing's changed. But like you could definitely see how the attitudes that shaped this game are still in play and how they've evolved since.
Wild, man.
It is wild because this is so. The other thing is that it brings it so also over the top that like you see the inherent sort of ridiculousness of a lot of the political language at the time. And I think that also informs a lot of the ridiculous. You could apply that filter and see a lot of the ridiculousness of the political speech now on both sides, probably. It is a strange time capsule. It is worth it 100% for the art, and for me for the map that has the Hackensack River Communipaw Bridge on it. I know that that's not a big sell for pretty much anyone else, but for me, this will always be a special game on my shelf. It took me a long time to find a copy. There's not a ton of them, and they are expensive for what amounts to like a mediocre curiosity.
Okay, so that's great. This one's not our fault then.
No, they're already like $150, $200 for the box set usually, because that cover is just worth its weight in gold. Honestly, like that, I really do think that the sense of humor of that cover is the reason that it costs money.
Right on, man. Well, do you have any final thoughts on this game?
No. I think that we've covered it. I have lots of other thoughts on the military games that we've also mentioned here. A lot of them are all going to be on the feed this year, later, I think in the summer. So we could talk about more maybe then.
Yeah. Let's not blow it all in this episode, because remember, we've been at this now for like, I don't know, almost 6 years.
Yeah.
So we need to stretch.
Yeah.
We need to stretch. We're gonna run out. I mean, granted, there's always gonna be RPGs to talk about, but like, is there? So we got to stretch. We need to keep having more episodes.
You know what the thing is, about it's like there's so many things that I think that I've talked about that I just automatically just pass over. There's so many games that we've not talked about on here that like because of the feed of the book, I think that we've covered it and we haven't. I gotta go through. I gotta make a list.
Gotta make a list. Well, this is another amazing episode of the Vintage RPG Podcast. Stu, where can people find you on the internet?
They could find me on Instagram at Vintage RPG. We're in July. We will have a whole week of military RPGs, culminating with a Friday post on The Price of Freedom.
Very cool. You can find me across the internet at John McGuire RPG. I'm mostly on the Instagram these days, and I'm promoting my latest Kickstarter, Children of Uma, Enter the Dino Knights. By the time you hear this episode, it will be funded, and if not, then I got bigger problems. But you can head on over to Kickstarter, and you could back Children of Uma, Enter the Dino Knights, post-apocalyptic vehicles versus dinosaurs. Let them fight. It's going to be an awesome time, and we're going to have some killer artists lined up. Zach Giolongo did the cover, and it's amazing, and it is a blast, and I can't wait for people to get it to the table. But, you know, what helps me get it to the table is you guys heading over to Kickstarter and backing Children of Uma, Enter the Dino Knights. If you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Your reviews really do help other listeners to find us, and if you really like the show, why not become a patron? Patreon.com/VintageRPG. We got a behind-the-scenes look at whatever Stu's working on. We got a behind-the-scenes look at 3-2-1 action. We have early release episodes that you get at some point on like Friday or Saturday, depending on when we record them in the week. We've got a killer Discord community that we'd love for you to be a part of, and a tier where you can play an RPG with me a month, and a tier where you can join in Stu's West Marches campaign and also play with your old buddy HB once a month. I pick random RPGs. I don't know what I'm doing for February yet because we're recording this so early in the month, but it's going to be cool and it's going to be fun. Everyone always leaves the table happy.
Maybe the price of
with
freedom.
Your old buddy HB. Oh, probably not. Yeah. You know what's funny about your book is that in the patron lounge, like, oh wow, like we just read Stu's book. Maybe we can get Hamlin to write it for us. And I was like, I don't want to touch Stu's like very expensive RPGs with my grubby little fingers. I'd have to wear gloves. It would just be awkward. And you know, soft white gloves make dice roll bad. Anyway, patreon.com/vintagerpg. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners to find us. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dego West. Art by Schaefer Brown. If you like the podcast, you should also consider becoming a patron at patreon.com.